gay dating is hard enough without saying, okay, I'm just going to sit back and wait for the world to come to me because I'm so gorgeous, I'm so great, I'm just going to wait. Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Today I was thinking about something and I thought I would make a little video about it. You know, you often see on YouTube people who have videos about their coming out or about their awful Grindr dates, Tinder dates, whatever. I know a lot of people when they first come out or they're first exploring coming out, they tend to kind of take a wait and see approach, you know. If they're attracted to someone, they might, you know, be slightly flirty, but then they wouldn't pursue it anymore. They'd wait to see if that person was interested and to come to them. And I've just known too many friends in my life who, when I've talked to them about getting potential boyfriends, they always say, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm really shy, so I'm hoping if I get a boyfriend, he will just come and meet me, you know, knock on my front door, if you will. And I think we all know gay dating is hard enough without saying, okay, I'm just going to sit back and wait for the world to come to me because I'm so gorgeous, I'm so great, I'm just going to wait. And it just never happens. That's not really how it happens. You have to put yourself out there. You have to make an attempt. And I was never a shy little kid. I was always very aggressive, big-mouthed, really made my point. I wasn't really taking shit, you know, from high school on. I was pretty demanding in what I wanted. And as far back as 14 years old, I remember this. I was out with my mother for dinner with her boyfriend. I was 14 years old, and we were at this really nice restaurant, and I had a waiter that I assumed was probably gay. And so when I had the opportunity, I excused myself to go to the bathroom, and I went in and I had a napkin with me, and I had gotten a pen, and I wrote down my name and my phone number. And I couldn't just hand it to him at the dinner table, obviously. So I waited until we were done dinner and my mother and her boyfriend were having like an after-dinner cocktail. I probably was as well. And I excused myself a second time, and I waited until the waiter was going by me in the hall. And I just, you know, I was looking down at the floor and I'm like, this is for you. And I looked down and I just like ran away back to my table. And when he brought the bill and everything, we connected eyesight a little bit, but in hindsight, I mean, this dude was in his early 20s, and here I was, obviously a 14-year-old kid. You know, I was obviously a very young guy hitting on him, and I don't know what I expected was going to happen. I'm sure this guy was thinking, oh, I'm going to get arrested if I even contact this guy. Then there was another circumstance when I was out with my girlfriend. I was about 17 years old because I was driving. And we, again, went to some restaurant at Boston University area. She was going to Boston University. And so we were having dinner. And again, the waiter was very, I thought, flirty, but kind of coming across as gay, you know. And so I once again did the same thing. I wrote down my name and my phone number, and when I had the opportunity, when my girlfriend wasn't around, I slipped this dude this note, and I said, this is for you. And I remember writing the note, and it said, you waited on me today, and I thought you were very attractive and very professional and did a wonderful job. And I also find you very attractive. So here is my name and my phone number, and if you're interested, please give me a call. Both times when I did this, And I did it more times than two, but just the two that come to mind. Both times, I remember saying, and that shows the immaturity level. I remember saying, okay, here's my name and number. I will be at my telephone tonight at from 8 o'clock p.m. to 8:30 p.m. If you are interested, give me a call during that time. And back in my parents' house, we only had one telephone, the old, of course, dial phone. And as my mother started to get sick, we realized that we needed to have the phone have a longer extension cord on it so that the phone could be carried into the living room where my mom was on the couch for a while, or into the dining room where she was in a hospital bed. So we had this really long cord on it. And both times, because I said, okay, I'm going to be at my telephone from 8 to 8:30 p.m. So I'd stretch this phone cord all the way upstairs to my bedroom, right? Anybody could have tripped over and killed themselves. Brought it all the way up, put it in my bedroom, and extended the receiver out as far as I could to make sure I could answer it. Hung it up, and I just kind of watched TV. I remember I had a couple Playgirl magazines that I was looking at the centerfolds, first nude guys in magazines. Playgirl, great magazine back in the 70s. And so I would be sitting there and, flipping through it and getting a boner, of course, and just getting excited about, oh, these guys are going to call me, Like when I was 14, I remember just saying to myself, oh, I know this guy is going to call me, I was dressed good, I looked good, I had my long hair, my puka shell necklace, my whole David Cassidy look was going on at the time. And I was just sure that this dude was going to call me. And both times I sat up in my room and I waited and I was watching the clock. I've always been a clock watcher, and maybe this is what started it back then. But I remember, okay, it's 8:10. Oh, he hasn't called, but maybe he's busy. He's getting home. He's getting organized. He's going to call. 8:20. Oh, it's getting late, but still has 10 minutes. I know this dude's going to call me. I know it. And of course, 8:30 would come. And I never heard from the dude. I never heard from any of the guys that I did this. What was aggressive for my age to go up and say, hey, here's my phone number. Give me a call. We'll hook up. I was pretty aggressive, but I think back then I was so nervous about it that I would write out the note, I'd hand it to them, and then I'd kind of run. And had I stayed there and engaged in conversation, etc., maybe something would have happened. But I guess, I don't know, is it passive aggressive in that, yes, I wrote the note and yes, I gave it to them, but the second I gave it to them, I wanted to get out of the restaurant before they had a chance to read it and then come back to me and say, oh, thanks, kid, but no thanks. Fortunately, none of them ever dismissed me, called and said, get the fuck away from me, any of that. I just never heard from them at all. I did start hooking up with guys around the age of 14. Drinking age was 18 back then. You could get into bars fairly easily if you were looking a little bit older, if you carried yourself a little bit older, if you didn't act like a complete idiot when you were in the bar. You could usually get into some of the gay bars. This was back in the early 70s when all the gay bars, nobody had signs up or open windows or rainbow flags or any of that stuff. Bars tried to make themselves the least noticeable as possible. So they were blacked out windows and a blacked out door, no name over it. And it's only when you open the door and walk in that you realize that it's a gay bar. And word, of course, got around through the city of where the gay bars were. So starting at like 14, I started going to these bars. And yes, I would meet people and I would hook up with people. It was fairly easy as a 14-year-old to do this. Because even though I looked like potentially I could be 18, I certainly looked like a very young looking 18. Duh. I was 14. Duh. But I started hooking up with guys when I was 14, and I've been trying to remember all day when the first actual gay date that I had was. Not a hookup, but a date. And gosh, I must have been, I think I was over 25, because when I was 25 is when I made the decision that, okay, I'm obviously gay. I'm not bisexual, even though I had slept with 6 or 7 women. It was not a particularly pleasant experience. And so I figured by the time I was 25 that I'm not going to be getting married to a woman. I didn't know what I was going to do about the potential of having children in the future, but I just knew at 25 I was gay. And that was probably when I stopped hooking up as much and started trying to have dates, because my goal had always been, especially after my mom died and I was totally on my own at 17, I was looking for a boyfriend, then to be a husband. I mean, even at that young age. And so I wasn't hooking up as much. The hooking up I would do would be like outside cruising kind of thing. Or, no, I shouldn't say that. There were times in bars when I'd be there and I'd have a few drinks and there was a hot guy and he wanted to hook up, but he wasn't interested in a date. Yeah, I would. But it wasn't until my 20s that I actually started that horrible, long, awful, terrible dating process of trying to find a boyfriend, trying to find a husband. And I know many of you that talk to me because of the podcast or because of this YouTube channel. You've told me the frustrations that you have had being, maybe someone already in your 40s or 50s or 60s, are still single, and you are still looking for the elusive boyfriend. I know what a difficult situation that is. I know how hard it can be when you think, okay, I'm at this age now, so if I haven't gotten a boyfriend when I was in my 20s or 30s or 40s and now I'm in my 50s, chances of me getting a boyfriend are pretty slim. And I know that the numbers game says that, right? You read a guy over 40, I know it's one of those, has a better chance of getting hit by lightning than to get into a gay relationship or whatever it is. I think they talk about that about women too. Women over 40 have a better chance of being hit by lightning than to find a husband. I know it can be frustrating. And I've mentioned on the podcast, I was 54 years old. I had long-term illnesses that were potentially going to shorten my life, potentially kill me. And I was a psychological mess. I was in therapy. I was on some medications, which were the wrong medications at the time. And despite all of that shit going on, I met Paco, who was my boyfriend, and then we lived together, and then we got engaged, and then we got married. And by the time we got married, I was 56, 57, something like that. And I had given up. I didn't think it was going to be possible. And then, life can change in but a moment. And that's what happened to me. Life completely changed as soon as I met this guy. And I met him through friends, but then we talked online for a few months before we actually met, because he wasn't in this area yet. And then he was in this area and we met. And it's kind of that old lesbian joke that he kind of came that first night, which was Christmas Eve, and he never ended up leaving. Well, he didn't live with me totally by then. He was working a job and he had a place to stay that was provided by his job. And it was about an hour away. But then he was leaving that company. He was looking for something new. So he stayed with me, and then he just kind of never left. And I didn't have to slip weird waiters notes saying, please, please call me, go out on a date with me. So please don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Put yourself out there, and maybe don't put yourself out there necessarily as someone that is looking for a boyfriend or a husband. Because if you just start chatting with somebody and that's one of the first things you put out there, you're going to seem desperate. You're going to seem too needy. And even though you may be, because I was, you got to kind of cover that up, at least for a little while. You can't let it go too crazy too fast. But don't give up, please, and just be willing to understand that the older you get, the more realistic you have to be about who your potential lifelong partner is going to be. When you're in your early 60s, you cannot expect that you're going to date a 30-year-old. If you do, be aware you're going to be supporting that 30-year-old. You're going to be paying for everything. And there's no saying that 30-year-old is going to stick around when he finds yet the next person that is going to take care of him. So look for age appropriate and be willing to realize as you age, if you're into your 70s, you'd probably do best with someone still at your same age because you would have history that you could talk about. Paco and I are 22 years difference in our ages. It works, but at times it's really weird, especially with him from Mexico. When he first arrived, hey, remember, you want to watch Gilligan's Island? It's on this afternoon. What's Gilligan's Island? Really? Okay. Hey, you want to watch Batman? Oh, the movie? No, the TV series from the 60s. There was a TV series? Oh, yes. Fine. We'll watch some stuff together. You watch some stuff by yourself. I'll watch some stuff by myself. And that'll be okay. But it would be better if he was more my age. Actually, what would be better is if I was his age. But it would be really good to be able to share common history, not together, but just in how we grew up. The fact he's from Mexico completely changes the dynamic, though. Even if he was my age and he was from Mexico, we're not going to have the same histories. We've talked. They didn't have Gilligan's Island in reruns dubbed down in Mexico. You just didn't have it. I am going to ask you something, though. If you would be willing to make a comment down in the comment sections, or if you want to send me an email to anoldergayguyshow@gmail.com, please consider letting me know how you went about first getting dates when you realized that you were gay or bisexual. How did you do that? How did you first meet people? Are you young enough that it was online? Do you meet your partner out at a bar? Did you meet your partner maybe even at a sex party? Because, of course, we can meet people at all these different places. Doesn't mean that just because we're going to a bar that everybody in the bar is just looking to hook up. That's not true. So how did you first start dating or hooking up in gay life? How did that happen? Meanwhile, I'll be back next week with another episode, and please consider listening to the podcast and subscribing both to this channel and the podcast. The podcast, of course, is An Older Gay Guy Show. This is Joey Hernandez. Thanks, guys. Be well. Bye for now.